Art teachers of Reddit. What's you, draw anything you want, story. I just remembered, a poor little guy who drew a self-portrait. He drew with meticulous detail, and when it came down to drawing his pants he drew the zipper so carefully but it looked like a penis. I was flummoxed about how to tell him that people might see something there that he didn't intend. Did you end up telling him? What was his reaction? I did tell him, and he was so embarrassed I thought he was going to pass out. This is 6th grade. I have a design your own monster Halloween lesson. Most kids draw cute ghosts or cool vampires. One 7th grader drew a sad clown hanging by a belt from a ceiling fan. He had issues. Oh man, this reminds me of a weird childhood memory. In elementary school my mom bought this chain that hangs from the ceiling with clips on it to hang stuffed animals from. Super cool idea until one night I saw the shadow that it cast on my wall from the streetlight happened to look like a fat clown had hung itself. I had to explain the next morning why my response was to rip the entire chain out of my ceiling instead of rearranging things. Didn't get in trouble though. I was substitute teaching an art class. An 8th grader drew a picture of an adult woman molesting a child. I pulled the student aside after class and found out her aunt had been molesting her for years when she was babysat or came to visit. I reported it and her aunt ended up going to prison. Kids will sometimes draw things they wouldn't normally say out loud. Reminds me of the webcomic called Clarissa. She was raped and molested by her father, and in class she had drawn a wolf, taking advantage of a chipmunk. The teacher laughed it off and didn't think anything of it, thinking that wasn't what Clarissa meant to draw. Glad you reported it though. Clarissa is a seriously fucked up comic. No pun intended. It is a whole series about this little girl who is being molested and the ways it makes her act out to the oblivious adults in her life. That comic is sickening. At least it can get some people aware of what people go through and some red flags to look for. Had a kid who would draw fantastic but tiny. Took me 3 years but got him to start drawing much larger things and he excelled at it. Attention to detail is great but not if you need a magnifying glass to see it. Honestly, he could have drawn Where's Waldo books at 3rd grade, haha. Oddly enough, tiny drawings paintings are a thing. There's one artist who does oil paintings in vintage pill containers that look pretty good. That's the most hipster artisan thing I think I've ever said. But I swear she does good work. I got in trouble once for drawing a pooping butt. Little did my teacher know. But the drawing was actually a poorly drawn butterfly that ended up looking like a hairy pooping butt, and when asked why I put the details I did like the legs and antenna and proboscidea coming off the segmented body. I said, I dunno. Don't they all look like that? I saw one a recess and thought it was pretty and wanted to draw it. Thinking of the butterfly, of course. Nope. I ended up having to see the school counselor. Never assume what kids are trying to draw. Always ask. Yes. I worked at a summer day camp and one of the 4-year-old kids drew something that looked remarkably like male genitalia and everyone panicked and parents and psychologists got involved and finally someone asked him what he drew. He said, "It's a cannon. Look at it. It's on wheels." In early middle school, we did a project where we used cardboard draped in colorful paper match to make a sound word. Like, wham, or, crinkle. I was really into knights at the time. So I made the word that was the sound of someone unsheathing a sword. That word was, schlong. Single quote. Ah, yes. The sound of unsheathing your sword. High school 1977. Not a teacher. While everyone else was drawing Pink Floyd rainbows and peace signs all over everything, the biggest burnout in the class made a wide metal bracelet with intricate triangular designs cut out of it. He turned it in and got a great grade for the first project he ever bothered finishing and some well-deserved praise for his effort. Teacher handed our work back and first thing he did was grab a pair of pliers and bent all the triangles outward, making it a thick metal spiked bracelet. I found that devilishly, disturbingly clever. I ran arts and craft classes at a youth group for disadvantaged kids. Decided one day to give them total freedom. I just put out all the supplies we had and let them go crazy. Kids made some really cool works of art, all very colorful and creative. I was talking to one kid when another asked me to help him spell things for his artwork. I go over to his table with him and he's been making a card for a boy in his class at school. He tells me his friend's mom had just died from cancer and he wanted to make a card for him to cheer him up, but he couldn't spell anything he wanted to write. He was 13 years old and I had to help him spell out something like, "Dear _________. I am so sorry about your mom, but I will always be your friend and here for you. Love, blank." I had to help him spell his own name. He made the card totally unprompted. I feel for the guy. He was totally sweet and caring for his friend and really smart. He'd just not got the help he needed. Went home after and had a little sob. I'd just like to say that I really didn't do anything special here. I only helped him spell out a card. I wish I could have done more, but I was fresh out of high school and was only volunteering. I actually had been in one of the other youth groups they ran and been asked to volunteer in this one as they needed more hands. I left shortly after this for university. I reported the incident to my supervisor and she assured me he was getting the care and help he needed, but they could not tell me more for security reasons. He was the real hero here. I hope he and his friend are doing okay. Parent here. Not an art teacher. In kindergarten, my son came home with a packet of finished assignments he got back from the teacher. One was a paper having them draw a body part with the prompt, "Here are my." Single quote dot. Example given was, feet. What did my kid draw? Butt cheeks. Drawing of the back of a person with two giant, well-drawn, I might add, cheeks. My husband and I laughed our own butt cheeks off when we saw it. We kept the paper. For posteriority. Former student here. We were supposed to do a bit of abstract artwork for a course assignment. My work was a framed square cutout from an old t-shirt I had previously used to help restain an old table. Not only did I get an A on the assignment, but I entered it into a silent auction later that semester and someone bought it. Also former student. 10th grade art teacher told us to draw the city 50 years from now. I drew flying buildings and she threw it back at me because flying buildings are impossible. You should have said, in 1903. The NY Times claimed a flying machine wouldn't be possible for at least a few million years. Mere months later, the Wright brothers' first flight took place. 66 years later, humans landed on the moon. It took 66 years to go to space. Not millions of years to fly. Quote. In the 40s, scientists also claimed that running a mile in under 4 minutes was physically impossible. Over 1,000 people have done it since then. So if someone shits on your dreams, tell them to eat a dick. One kid had to have a meeting with the principal, her parents and the art teacher because the art teacher decided that because this second grade girl only drew people without hands. The little girl felt powerless. All these adults questioned this child about the meaning of her drawings. She tells them, hands are too hard to draw. Single quote. I wanna see this art teacher's psychotherapy degree. Or they're like actual art. Any artist who isn't like Savon level from age 6 knows the struggle of hands. Feet. Drawing the other eye. Student here. My art teacher was somewhat crazy. She let us draw anything we want and to get 100% all you had to do was tell her it had a deep connection to the earth, or some other nonsense. I drew a jellyfish and told her it represented wisdom because it was immortal. I like to imagine one day she will just see a documentary on jellyfish and learn that they can't really learn or have wisdom and just have this epiphany, that kid was just making shit up. To be honest, she's the kind of person that wouldn't believe the documentary. She's very spiritual, I don't know how else to describe it. I have loads of stories about this teacher, they're hilarious. When I was in 2nd grade, our teacher told us to doodle on the back of a quiz if we finished early. I decided to draw a house high in the sky with a long staircase leading to it. To emphasize its height, I drew clouds, but it needed more. I decided to add in an airplane. Later my teacher called me to her desk and I got in trouble because the plane looked like it was heading towards the house, and this was right after 9/11 happened. Still have no idea what I was thinking. Did you really understand 9/11s? I think I've done worse things in school in purpose. I think I never fully processed 9/11. When I was around 8 or 9, I got into drawing cars. And simultaneously into drawing tribal decorations, probably not PC. But you know, the type a lot of people get as a tattoo. So I drew a car with tribal decal, and because of the hook-like shapes in the tribal decal, I inappropriately named the car, the Hooker. When she was done laughing, My mom took the time to explain the world's oldest profession. More innocuous than my second grade class assignment to create a new animal by combining two real animals. And I turned in, the pussy snake. What is worse is everyone had to share with the class before turning it in. So my teacher didn't have any warning. Half the class broke into chaos and I got a note home and an interrogation from my mother about where I got this from. Worst of all is no one explained what I did wrong. Another story about getting in trouble for something inappropriate without knowing. When I was 11 I wrote a poem at school with the word, prick, in it. Thinking that it just meant a slight annoyance. Whenever I got to draw something on my own I just drew fucking cake. How did the cakes fuck? How do cars fuck dragons? Life is a series of questions. My brother was told to draw an animal from any angle he wanted, so he drew a dot and said it was a very far away lion. When I was in high school, part of the final exams assessments in art class involved picking an object of your choice, based on a written passage, and painting it as best you can. My art teacher told us about one kid who chose a book as his object. He turned up with an art book with a professional still life painting on the cover and proceeded to recreate the painting stroke by stroke. IRC, there were phone calls made to his parents and to the Board of Education over it, but the kid got away with it in the end. I assume there were some changes to the rules after that. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with this. He just picked his art book and drew the cover of it, which had a still life painting. What's wrong with that? The project was to draw something based off a text description. I assume they were supposed to draw something on how they imagined it would look. Not just copy an existing picture. Not an art teacher. But for 1 year I was a preschool teacher a few years back. It was like a Friday at 4 p.m. in the winter. I gave the kids some time to color or draw whatever they wanted. 10 minutes go by and one of my students, 4 at the time, who I had a hate-love relationship with because he caused a lot of behaviors but could be a sweet kid when wanted to, came up to me and said, "Look miss, I made a drawing for you." I gave a warm smile and asked him to show it to me. It was a drawing of his parents doing the nasty. He even got the penis part right with balls and everything. Totally shocked but remained as neutral as possible because I knew if I had reacted in a major way he would have continued to make more drawings like this. This is something I learned about him. So I said, "Let's put that in your backpack and we can show mommy when she picks you up." Dad comes that day. More embarrassing for me. I told him about the drawing and he turned bright red, explaining the other night he had walked in on them having sex. We awkwardly laughed about it and that was that.